As we move to adulthood, we have relationships, and those relationships, not just with friends or with mentors, but we have relationships usually with the opposite sex. And we get into more intimate relationships. Today, not everybody is choosing marriage, but they have relationships. And I'm going to go through a few styles that many people fall into in their mature relationships. And the first one is the mother-son. And it has nothing to do with age. Maturity has nothing to do with age. But the mother-son relationship is one where a nurturing woman takes care of the partner. And that's her role. She likes it. She's a nurturer. The next one is the doll and the daddy. And you can see this frequently, especially with older, successful men. And they have what we call arm candy. And these are usually much younger women, usually quite attractive, and they benefit from having a different kind of daddy. He takes care of her, he provides for her, and that's a very common relationship. The next one is the teacher-student. And these are people where one of the partners feels they are either better educated, more worldly, wiser, has more answers. And it's the old Pygmalion story where they take the pupil and they are the teacher and looked up to and give advice and guidance. And the pupil likes that. The next one is the master-slave. And these sometimes are very dangerous and nasty relationships. And the master really controls, and the slave is indeed a slave doing usually the male's bidding. And again, these are all unequal relationships. Another one is what I call the bitch and the nice guy. And these are nice guys who've had mothers who were bitches. And that's what they think women in relationships should be. And these bitchy women get a hold of these nice guys and they do their bidding. And again, it's an unequal relationship. The last one is an egalitarian relationship. And in this relationship, the two partners are pretty much mature adults and equal. It doesn't mean that any of these relationships will go on any longer than any other. It doesn't mean that any one is better than any other. It just means that in the unequal ones, the risk is that the one that is not equal may become equal, and then that relationship changes dramatically or ends. There is no perfect family, there is no perfect relationship, and everyone comes out with wounds and scars and unmet needs. What happens in relationships is that it sort of hits you in the face, so that it's a daily or constant reminder of either going well or not going well. Some of the best counseling that people like myself ever do is to help people end a relationship constructively. And that's painful, but you can learn from a relationship that doesn't work. It's difficult for people to think about making changes like that, especially when children are involved, when money's involved, when status is involved. It's a frightening thought, but in order to develop and move on, many people do have to make changes. Hopefully you learned and don't make the same mistakes. But I'm here to tell you, as a marriage counselor, I've had any number of couples get married 2 or 3 times. They change the face and the name, but the pattern is exactly the same. It's because they haven't changed and their needs have not changed emotionally. And when I take a history, I can almost tell you what's going to happen, because whether you like it or not, 9 chances out of 10, you are going to repeat the emotional pattern that your parents lived in their relationship. If you hated it and go the exact opposite to get away from it, there's a big risk in that because it's unknown territory. So what we have is, as the best insurance, parents who have a loving, mature relationship. But I talk to thousands of audiences, and I can go into an audience with hundreds of people and I say, raise your hand if you would like your marriage to be like your parents. Very few hands go up. And that's because nobody gets educated about the most important things in life, which is why I do the work I do and write the books I write and have a podcast and a blog. Nobody teaches you and helps you. And if I said to you, or as I do to couples, what do you wish you had known before you got into this relationship significantly? They all have things that come up. So the testing that has to go on before you give your heart away is extremely important. And relationships and intimate relationships are where we really get our most beneficial good feelings. Most people, if not all people, live this life and want to love and be loved. To get there is the trick. Now today, and in the world we're living in, there are lots of difficulties that we have to deal with. And differences come up. And the question is, how do couples resolve their differences? How do they work out the things that they don't like about one another? Can you live with the idiosyncrasies? What can't you compromise? And for this group in particular, in talking about crises, crises can make you change and change for the better. When I was working at the hospital, we would have these guys come in who were real SOBs, and they'd have a heart attack. They'd go out pussycats. And things like breast cancer, it's a crisis. There's no doubt about it. And to think that it can be a beneficial one is difficult to even accept, because, especially for women, it's body image, it's sexuality. But you are more than your breasts. And there are people with mastectomies that are quite comfortable without doing anything. And there are others that have implants and feel quite comfortable with that. And I don't have to tell this group, the majority of implants are not with people with breast cancer. So that body image and dealing with that is a crisis. And do you have a supportive partner? Is the family helpful? Are friends available? Are there groups where people have walked in the same shoes? That can help. But a crisis is not to be avoided. Most of the things that are the worst and best in our life are unplanned. And a crisis will help you to change in a way that nothing else might have. The other 2 ways that people change are with therapy, people like me, and with great insight, which very few people have. So change is possible, and crises is not a bad thing. I once did a cover feature for Red Book magazine about it. And we had a lot of response because people don't think in those terms. But a crisis is not to be feared. And today, with all that's going on, we have marches, we've got pandemics, we have people not able to connect and socialize. We have a lot of things going on in this world today that cause us anxiety and stress. And stress is the killer. To know how to cope and to find ways to be somewhat happy. Nobody is always happy all the time. But to find a place that feels comfortable within yourself, first of all, within your intimate relationships, and then with the world at large. It's a very big task. And I think that's why we see a lot of people with alcohol and drug problems, suicides. But we also see the other side of good things happening because of the pressures that people have and being kinder to one another and nicer to one another. The people you want to be around and the people who are what I call successful are the people who are reasonably happy within themselves, who are curious, who are interesting, and who are able to get outside of themselves, and their pleasure comes from giving to others. And that's kind of hard to find because, as I said earlier, we all have unmet needs, we all have scars, we all have things that we want. And in our society, it makes it difficult. And we always see people who have more and do more than we, and we forget about the people who are on the other side that don't have what we have or can't do what we do. So I think it's a real task for the human being, and especially today, to cope and to be contented in some way and to have positive relationships, and especially with intimacy. And I always say, find whatever corner of the world makes you feel that way. And don't worry about what other people think or feeling guilty about this, that, or the other thing. Find that corner that you can escape to. And in closing, in my part, I want to read something from my first Woozie Wisdom book. This one won a national award, and there's a second one as well. So we have two Woozie Wisdom books, and I didn't explain where the word Woozie comes from. My husband makes up names, and he endearingly would call me Woozie. And when our first grandchild, Daniel, was born, he heard that. So he decided that was my name. So he called me Woozie, and then the other two granddaughters followed. And when we would go out and I would be with them and he would say something about Woozie, and people would come up and they say, "Oh, your son is so adorable." I would say, "Daniel, don't you open your mouth and say I'm your grandmother. Nobody in this world knows what the hell a Woozie is." So we got away with it. But I'm going to read you one of the essays. This book has about 150 essays. The other one has about 200, and they're fun to read. This one is called "I Will Survive." It is not clear that intelligence has any long-term survival value. Stephen Hawking. Listen to the song with the same title, "I Will Survive" by Gloria Gaynor, and you will get the idea. Survival is an accomplishment, not a given. We all go through periods, and certainly history has shown that survival as an individual, country, or world doesn't happen by magic. There are any number of people, places, and even our own planet that have given up. From time to time, or even forever, some do not go on or continue. Our planet has died several times before, and today many fear that happening again, some through human causes and some just nature's evolution. Countries have gone through destruction, and many have not survived or not survived as they had done before. Resiliency may have a lot to do with it. Changing the way things were done before can help in many instances, and so too with we humans. How many individuals and families have gone through not just tough times, but horrific times and come through? Not unscathed, but maybe stronger or bent. Even in concentration camps, some women gave birth. That's really hope and faith in a better future, if it wasn't an accident. But today we are faced with a number of facts that are disturbing and give cause for concern. The suicide rate for females is dramatically higher. People are using opioids and other drugs and alcohol to a dramatic extent. Our infrastructure is deteriorated to an alarming degree. Our educational system is not producing learned people. Well, maybe it is better to survive happily if you are dumb. People are not nice for the most part, and being an individual who is independent and making money seems to be what matters. Forget politeness and looking like you care about how you look. Robots may soon be taking over a lot of what we think of as humanity. The prediction is that by 2020, you will spend more time in contact with a robot than with your spouse. That may be a relief for some, as a matter of fact. However, the other side of the coin is that it does take gumption, strength, and maybe just a sliver of hope to get through. There are some great positive things happening around us. There are wonderful researchers, for example, at places like the Cleveland Clinic working on a vaccine for breast cancer. There are creative writers and just decent people struggling to make this a better place to live and work, and the planet come together for the good of all. There are sturdy families helping one another and sharing good and bad times together. There are neighbors reaching out to offer a helping hand, and there are individuals struggling to find deeper meaning in their lives with one another. And of course, you know I get there. There is only one course for action: learn how to really love. Without that, you as an individual cannot offer much to another or to the community or to the world. It is the most difficult learning in the world. For some, it may come easily because they were loved from the start and learned to love themselves first. But for many, it is a slow, painful process. There is always rejection, hurt, betrayal, and despair along the way. The trick is to survive all of that and keep pushing ahead. Do not give up as long as you breathe. Find a way to care about anything, then work on caring about another human being. There are always people out there who need caring and love. It is up to you to reach out and find them. They will not come floating through your window. You go out and find them. Just surviving is not enough. It is how you survive. Life comes from physical survival, but the good life comes from what we care about. Rollo May. So I hope that kind of sets the stage for some discussion. I have to tell you though, with everybody walking around wearing masks these days, I said to my husband the other day, a lot of these people actually look better with masks on. And whoever thought we could walk into a bank with a mask, ask for money, and they would happily give it to you. So it's a whole different world today. And my part in it is to try and educate people, help them have great relationships, and to talk about things that matter, because many families and many individuals have a very difficult time doing that. So I'd like to open it up, and if people have comments, feel free to disagree, put something in, ask a question, and let's see where we go with this.